Well, it's been a while since we've had one of these, huh? I'm Papa Kenn and welcome to episode 79 of Discovering Doctor Who. I apologize that I'm actually still recording with my phone right now because honestly at this time I'm not entirely sure where my camera is. The office still has quite a bit of work left to be done and the camera is put up somewhere. I just don't know where yet, and I really wanted to make sure I could get this out in time, so please do forgive me for the lowered quality and hopefully not too bad sound going on. But, and since I'm recording on my phone, I don't have it for notes, so I'm going to be checking out my computer over here. So, let's get right into it. Today's episode I'm going to be talking about is Cold War. And, well, as always, I'm going to reserve my final judgment until later in the video. Let's get started with my favorite parts of this episode, starting with the Professor. The Professor was just such a fun character. I really enjoyed him. He was just legitimately fun. Seemed like a real... Like, the guy that was playing him, you could tell he was having a lot of fun in that role. And the character himself was just so very joyful, which isn't really... You know, in a lot of the, I guess, classic movies, at least from what have come out here in the US, Russians are not usually portrayed as being, joyful or really happy or anything. They tend to be very serious. But so, having the Professor be that way was really cool and an enjoyable aspect of the episode for sure. I really did enjoy him. I mean, it doesn't go much deeper than that. He was just a really good character. Now, moving on, my second favorite part of the episode was Clara's confusion with the Russian and the fact that she didn't realize or know that she was speaking Russian, which is actually something I'll hit on a little bit later, but just the fact that she didn't realize because of the TARDIS doing the translating, which I believe the Doctor mentioned on Rings of Akaten, or whatever, however you pronounce it. I believe that was mentioned briefly there, but I don't know, I just thought it was funny that, she didn't realize what exactly was going on. It was an enjoyable little scene, to say the very least. But as I said, I'm going to touch on that again a little bit later for maybe not such a favorable reason. But anyway, moving on, my third favorite part of this episode was, and I wrote it a lot here, Ice Warrior Grand Marshal Skaldak. And, well, first of all, after the Waters of Mars, in some of the comments, people mentioned the Ice Warriors of Mars and how maybe these ice creatures, the water creatures were either like sort of a mutation or maybe like a predecessor to the Ice Warriors. So the fact that I actually got to experience, an Ice Warrior character for the first time was pretty cool, I have to say, especially since, the last time they were seen was as far back as the Third Doctor, I believe I read. Like, that was the last time that these characters were seen at all. And as far as the design goes, the armor is really cool. It almost looks like... not exactly, but it gave me the feeling of a very miniaturized version of the Jaegers from the movie Pacific Rim. For those of you that haven't seen that, that's a really awesome Guillermo del Toro film. I can't talk tonight, and you should check that out. But just overall, I found the character very interesting. The fact that the Doctor had this fear and respect for the character himself was, it was very cool to see, very interesting. And the way the Doctor responded when I guess he was a rookie or just someone very new, unwittingly attacked Skaldak. I found everything around that to be really cool. And then when we see him, we kind of see him outside of the armor, I just found that to be really interesting. And the episode took on a very, I want to say, like a combination of the Predator and Alien to a point. Like, we get all of these weird little clicky sounds that reminded me a lot of the Predator. It's like if you've seen the original Predator movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know what I'm talking about. And then, of course, we have the alien aspect, whereas it's like, it's just darting around real quick, and you hear, it's like, it's kind of hiding in the shadows, although not quite as well as in the Alien movie, of course. So yeah, I just found that to be really cool and a really interesting aspect, and from what I saw online, apparently the Doctor himself said he's never seen them outside of the armor, so that was something brand new to the series, no doubt. So I found that interesting that we got to see that. Alright, but moving on, well, before I move on, let me just say I'm also going to hit on that a little bit more in a later segment. I'm sure you know what segment I'm talking about. But anyway, moving on, my fourth favorite part of this episode was the fact that the Doctor was so, like, he knew what was at cost. He knew that if the nukes went off, it was going to cause a nuclear war. The Cold War would no longer be a war, just a Cold War. So he was ready to, sacrifice himself and all the others in order to keep that from happening. And just Matt Smith's portrayal, especially there at the end after Skaldak has been taken up to the mothership or the rescue ship, whatever it is, he's just basically like he's muttering to himself, he's talking to himself. The passion in his voice and his facial expression just really set forth the idea that he doesn't want to die, he doesn't want to sacrifice, the people that are there with him, especially Clara, but he's ready to do it. He'll do it if he has to. I just found that to be a really interesting and really cool aspect of the episode. I guess that you can really give that up to Matt Smith for his portrayal, because it could have been poorly acted by anyone else and it just wouldn't have come off as well. Alright, now that is all my favorite parts of the episode. It's time to get into the negatives, into my annoyances with this episode. And well, I thought I wrote down 5, but okay, we have 4 annoyances in addition to the 4 favorites. Alright, so let's get started with my first annoyance, which is they're Russians with no Russian accent. And this bothers me for 2 reasons, mostly in retrospect to the episode. Starting off, you see the episode and it's called Cold War, so we're immediately thinking, oh, okay, well, these are Russians, they're talking about motherland and all that, but they are all speaking in very British voices, in very British accents, which I was watching this episode with my wife Jill, and she was a little bit confused by that. She was like, are they Russian? I don't understand. Or maybe they're like traitors and they're working for the Russians. It was hard to tell, but then obviously we get that joke with Clara where, we realize that everyone's actually speaking Russian, but the TARDIS is translating it. But I can't help but feel like there should have been some slight indication, other than the fact that we're told that they're Russian, that these people are Russian. Like, they need to at least have, like, a Russian accent. I'm pretty sure, I could be remembering wrong, but I'm pretty sure that on the episode Let's Kill Hitler, when they went to Germany, that although people were speaking English, they were speaking with German accents. The people from Germany. Like Hitler. So, yeah, I don't know. I know it's inconsistent, and I know it goes from episode to episode, but it just really bothered me. I feel like it would have been just overall more effective if at least one of the characters had a Russian accent that came through. But then again, we wouldn't have had the joke where, Clara is talking about, like, am I speaking in Russian? What? And although I did enjoy that, I don't know, it still really bothers me. It's a weird conundrum I have there, because you can't have one without the other. So yeah, anyway, moving on from there, my second annoyance with this episode was the hokey alien limbs. And don't get me wrong, I understand that, although their budget has gone way up since even the early days of the new Doctor Who, the alien figure itself was not exactly super creepy looking. The fact that when you couldn't see it, when it was moving in shadows, that was a good creepy effect. But then we get the segments where you see the hands, or the fingers, I guess, rather. And the first time we see them with the second in command, I can't remember his name, but the second in command of the submarine, it it's kind of creepy. It's a little bit weird. It almost seems like it's kind of caressing the guy. That's okay. It may have just been messing around. I don't know what to say about that. But when it comes to the point where we see the alien, like, reaching out of the shadows and pulling people up, just the way that those limbs were designed was not... It just wasn't executed well. Like, the first time we see the limbs reach down, grab the newbie on the sub by the head and pull him up, it's like... I don't know. It's like, instead of seeing something go like this, like, dig its claws into this guy's head, we see something just go like this. Like, kind of caressing it, like, gently holding it. And I don't know, it's just like, in my mind, you could have had whatever was controlling the fingers, like, look like they were getting a better grasp, like they were digging into the skin. That would have made it more intimidating. That would have made that entire scene more interesting. But instead, when the guy got pulled up by the head, I laughed. And I shouldn't have laughed at that scene, because it's supposed to be serious, because it just killed someone. And even when the alien, or I'm sorry, Skaldak grabs the professor by the head, that part's a little bit tense, because it does kind of look like, the fingers are, at least pressing into the skin. But then it goes over to Clara and... Or no, wait, does it go to Clara first, or does it go to the professor first? I can't remember, but anyway, when it does grab Clara, whether it was before or after, it's another segment of that, like, it looks like it's just gently holding, like, not actually grasping, and there doesn't seem, to me, to be any real threat there. At least not, like, through the nonverbal communication there. It's like, Clara is showing fear, but the hands that are grasping her don't seem to require any more than a gentle brushing off to get away from. Again, may just be me, but yeah, that's probably one of my biggest issues with this episode. Again, for me personally. Now, moving on to my third annoyance with this episode was the forced singing at the end, and it goes back to where the professor was trying to help Clara calm down, telling her that he'll sing a song and it makes him feel better. And then at the end of the episode, where Skaldak's been taken away, and the doctor keeps saying, oh please, like, Skaldak, reverse the things that you've done. And it's all tense, super tense, and then Clara, like, kind of whispers part of hungry as the wolf, or hungry like the wolf. Just kind of whispers part of hungry like the wolf, and then all of a sudden, boom! Everything's fine again. And that was just, it felt really, really forced. It didn't, in my opinion, need to be there at all. The only, it almost makes it seem like it was the fact that she sung that reversed, it was the power of music that turned everything around. I don't know, it was really strange, and I just didn't like it. It didn't sit well with me, and it honestly did kind of ruin the ending. But, speaking of the ending, let's talk about my fourth annoyance with this episode, which is the TARDIS being at the South Pole. Now, the idea of the Doctor, filling around with the TARDIS and, basically setting it up so that if it detects danger, it will run away. It's intriguing, and I can understand that. I don't know, it seems a bit ridiculous that it would go so far away, especially since we don't know exactly where the sub is located when it surfaces, I don't think. But then at the end, they're just like, it's at the South Pole. Do you think you could give us a ride? And then everyone cracks up. Ha 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 ha! It was like the end of, an old 80s cartoon, which just felt really awkward. And that was another part of the ending that just felt off. It felt really strange. And, I mean, it's not like it's a major issue, but that was really strange, and just the fact that the TARDIS, goes a distance away. Obviously, it's been programmed to get away from the danger, but the South Pole? That far? Okay, if the sub doesn't take them there, how would they ever reach the TARDIS again? And I know it's just it's not gonna, they're gonna be traveling to the TARDIS on screen or anything. It's just something that happens in between episodes, but at the same time, it may just be being nitpicky, but it does annoy me. It just doesn't seem logically sound, I guess. I don't know. Then again, there's a lot of things with Doctor Who that aren't logically sound, but I still love this show. But yeah, alright. So those are my annoyances with the episode. As always, everyone, please do let me know parts of the episode that you loved, parts that annoyed you. If you just outright hate the episode, I mean, because there have been a few people that just say, like, you know, the episode sucks. And that's, in my opinion, that's completely legitimate. But if you're going to say that, just, you know, give a little bit of a reason why. Like, you know, explain at least just one thing specifically that bothered you that makes you hate that particular episode. Or, again, like I mentioned this before, if you just absolutely hate the episode, find one thing about it that you did like. You know, no matter how small it is, just something about the episode that you did like. So, yeah, I'll leave that out there. But moving on, it's time to talk about my track of the episode, and very slim pickings with this episode, because according to the soundtrack, there were only 2 songs specifically for this episode. One of which is named Cold War after the episode, and the other is Skaldak. And between the two, I will say this, both songs were very intense. They were intense and dynamic at the same time. So that was one thing that was going strongly for both of them. But in the end, I have to say that I think Skaldak was the stronger track of the episode overall. As for specific reasons why, it's really hard to say. It's just that between the 2 songs or tracks while listening back and forth, it just, I don't know, I just enjoyed it more, I guess you could say. But both of them were actually pretty good. I am disappointed that there were, again, such slim pickings as far as this episode goes, but the 2 that we did have available were actually pretty strong, so thumbs up for that. Alright, and then, well, of course, we get to my quote of the episode, and this episode wasn't exactly strong for quotable lines, but the one that stood out the most to me, again, at least in my opinion, is the conversation between Clara and the Doctor when, you know, she realizes that she's speaking Russian. So, yeah, it's, you know, it's kind of hokey, and I even went back and forth. I loved it, but I hated it. But it is still a quote of the episode, and it goes a bit like this. Am I speaking Russian? How come I'm speaking Russian? Now? We have to do this now? Are they speaking Russian? Seriously, now? It's the TARDIS translation matrix. Are they? Yes, they're Russians. that back and forth, it really did make me crack up. I really did love that scene. Again, despite the nitpicks that I had talking about what was necessary in order for that joke to be had, but overall, I really did like it. So yeah, that's the quote of the episode. If you have any other quotes from this episode that you prefer, please do let me know, because like I said, there weren't really many really quotable moments for this episode overall, but there are a handful, and I'd like to see if any of the others that were possibilities for this episode, you know, might be ones that you enjoyed more. Now, as for my theory as to how who or what Clara is, nothing really to build on with this episode, sad to say. You know, in the next episode, it might expand a little bit more, but for the time being, yeah, nothing really new to add. But that does bring us to my overall thoughts on the episode. And the best I can say about it, honestly, is that it was okay. It had there were some very significant, strong aspects to this episode. But at the same time, it seemed like all of the strong aspects had a negative side to them that just felt like it was bringing the episode down to the point where we have some pretty strong highs but pretty significant lows, and then it just kind of peters out to a midway at the end, and it just wasn't really anything special at the end. I would say that probably one of its biggest faults was that the episode had almost kind of an identity crisis. It's like the writing, or the writer, I actually think the writer was Mark Gatiss. They couldn't decide exactly what kind of episode they wanted this to be. So, I mean, obviously you have the sci-fi elements, but it starts out with Doctor Who meets The Hunt for Red October, a classic movie, by the way, if you haven't seen that. And then it evolves into this, very drama. Like, there are some very good dramatic moments, especially between the Doctor and the captain of the ship. And then it goes haywire into this direction where it's like a Predator movie mixed with an Alien movie that's occurring within the Hunt for Red October. but no one is speaking with even the slightest Russian accent. I don't know. It has an identity crisis, in my opinion. And while it had moments of strong writing, the writing and the focus was just overall so unbalanced. It was hard to thoroughly enjoy the parts that I did like. And I mean, I really hate to say that, because I thought that, especially in the beginning, especially the first time we see the Ice Warrior, that the episode had a lot of promise. And it did, but I don't know, it just didn't execute properly. And again, it's like the best I can say about this episode is that it's okay. It's probably not one I'll be rewatching anytime soon, but I wouldn't say it's bad. I would not say it's a horrible, horrible episode. Again, at least not in my opinion. I'm sure others think differently. What do we have left? I do have a question, actually, before we close this out entirely, and it's actually not anything to do with what's currently going on in my run through Doctor Who. It's a question that has to do with the future of discovering Doctor Who, and it is this. And it's inspired, actually, by some advice that I got from my time at Console Room this past weekend. And the question is this. When it comes to Classic Who, how do you all think I should approach it? Now, there's two possibilities that I'm working toward, and I like, the final decision will obviously be mine, but would you prefer, if when I do the classic Doctor Who, that I start from the beginning and work my way to the end, or would you prefer that I do it in what people at the convention refer to as a scattershot method, which is, I do think that I will start with an unearthly child, because I mean that's the first episode, and that, in my opinion, should be my introduction to the classic Doctor Who. But from there, instead of just going in order, doing all of Hartnell's episodes, doing all of the second Doctor's episodes, and then, all in that order, do one story from Hartnell, that being an unearthly child, then go to one of the second Doctor's episodes, and then one of the third Doctor's episodes, or maybe even just truly scattershot, where I start out with an unearthly child, and then I do an episode a story of the fourth Doctor's, and then jump back and forth. Maybe have it be up to a vote each time before I start each one up. Let me know what you all think, because, again, it's I'm really working this out in my mind. I'm leaning more toward the scattershot direction, but it's not a for sure thing. If enough of you think that going in the exact order would be the best way to do it, I will consider it. But in the meantime, it's again, just let me know what you all think. I am legitimately intrigued to know how you all think it should be approached on this channel. But alright, everyone, yeah, that's all I have to say about Cold War. It was an overall underwhelming episode that I wish could have done a little bit better, but in the end, I did still enjoy it, I have to say. Even if I'm not going to go back and visit anytime soon. But, alright everyone, I have actually watched the next two episodes, so I'm going to film those very soon. Probably not tonight, I need to try and find my regular camera. But in the meantime, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Leave all your thoughts down below, whether it's your favorite parts, the parts you hated, your favorite track of the two that are actually part of this episode. And, of course, let me know what you think about the question I presented regarding Classic Who. Until next time, everyone, I'm Papa Ken, and as always, Allons-y!